Hello all and welcome to the algebra video that is about proportions. So in this section or this video we're going to discuss how to solve proportions. It's very similar to how we've solved, technically proportion is an equation, so in this case solved equations we've done before, okay? So I think the best way to look at this is to just jump right into some examples, but just to do some clerical work here for just to go over the steps. The steps to solve proportions, okay? So once again, I mentioned just a second ago that proportions are just equations, okay? And they are equations that involve two ratios that are equal, okay? So what we're going to be doing here is solving proportions, which are just equations. But we do have basically one extra step that we have to do with proportions that we didn't have to do with equations with variables on both sides, multi-step equations, one-step equations, two-step equations, all the different types of equations we've seen. And that is the first step here, which is cross multiply. Okay. Hopefully many of you are familiar with the idea of cross multiplication. Sometimes teachers refer to it, or you might have heard it referred to as the butterfly or the butterfly method. Okay. If you're not really sure what that means, we're definitely going to see that when we jump into the examples, because every single one of these questions, you have to cross multiply. Okay. And once again, we'll go over how to cross multiply here in just a second when we start looking at the examples. Now, the second thing that you have to do, and notice it says if necessary over here, okay, so not every question requires you to do this. So in this case, distribute. Not every question requires you to do that, as you will see in actually example 1 here. The first example we're going to do, you do not have to distribute in that one. But I'll go ahead and tell you, pretty much in every single example after that, you have to distribute, okay? And if you're clever enough, you might be able to see the reason why we don't have to distribute in example 1 versus why we have to distribute in every other question. But I'll leave that to you. But like I said, technically distribute if necessary. And then the last step is, it's kind of a broad step here because we're relying on being able to solve all the different types of equations we saw before, which in this case is just solve, okay? And then like any other equation, meaning you're going to end up with equations with variables on both sides. You're going to end up with two-step equations. You're going to end up with multi-step equations. You're going to maybe end up with one-step equations, okay? So whatever equation that you end up with after you cross multiply and distribute, you're just going to solve it like you would any other equation, okay? So enough with the talking of the steps, okay? Once again, the new thing that we're adding here is this idea of cross multiplication, okay? But let's jump right into some examples and see how this works. So number 1, guided example here. So we're going to work these out for you. So what do I mean by cross multiplication? Well, here we have 4/3, or 4 divided by 3, is equal to x divided by 6. So 4/3 is equal to x sixths, if you want to think of it that way. But what we have here is a ratio is equal to another ratio. So how do we solve this? Well, once again, first step is cross multiply. And to cross multiply, you multiply the opposite numerator and denominators. So we're going to multiply the 3 times the x, and then we're also going to multiply the 4 times the 6. You can kind of see why they call it the butterfly method here, because it kind of looks like butterfly wings, and you can draw a little antenna on there, so there's a little butterfly. But let's not let that distract you from the fact of what we're doing here. So this whole point, the whole point of us drawing this is we multiply these two things here that are in this oval, and we multiply these two things that are in this oval. So in this case, we're going to multiply 3 times x. So that's where we get 3x. And whatever we get when we cross multiply here, it's going to be equal to whatever we get when we cross multiply here. So 3x is going to be equal to 6 times 4. So what we have here is 3 times x is equal to 6 times 4. Well, that tells us 3x is equal to 24. And what we have resulting here is, well, for one, we didn't have to distribute anything. So this is the only example that shows up in what we're going to do here. And you'll see why it shows up over here in just a second. But in this case, we actually get a one-step equation to solve. And we just solve this like any one-step equation. So we'll divide by 3. Those go away. So x in this case is equal to 24 divided by 3, or 8. Okay, and that's really all there is to it. Now, starting with the second example here, it does ratchet up the difficulty, but this is just a basic example just to show you how to cross multiply and then what kind of things you're going to have to do after you cross multiply. So in this case, we had to solve easy cases in this time. We just had to solve a one-step equation, okay? But now we go on to example 2. So same kind of thing here. We have a proportion. So we have a ratio is equal to a ratio. So 2 divided by 10, or 2/10, is equal to 4 divided by the whole thing, n plus 5. So 4 over n plus 5. Well, it's the same kind of thing, except for I'm going to do it a little bit in an opposite way here. First thing is we just cross multiply the 2 times the n plus 5. And then we'll do the 4 times the 10. Once again, draw the butterfly if you like. But what's really going on here is we're going to multiply this numerator by this denominator and this denominator by this numerator. And once again, it doesn't matter which order you do it. Over here, I did the 3 times x first, and then I did the 4 times 6 on the right-hand side. Well, this time I'm going to do the 2 times the n plus 5. So I'm going to write it out like this, 2 times n plus 5. Okay, but we have a little bit of an issue here. And this is the big deal. This is the hardest part of solving proportions, is recognizing we're not multiplying the 2 times the n, because if I wrote it out like this is just 2 times n, and then whatever we get there, we add 5. But that's not what we're multiplying 2 by. We're multiplying 2 by the whole thing, n plus 5. So instead of writing it like this, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to include parentheses, because you're multiplying 2 times the whole thing, n plus 5. And you can maybe see where the distributive property is going to come in, where we have to distribute. Okay, if we have something down here where it says n plus 5, or any 2 or 3 term, or however many term expression we have, you're going to end up having to distribute every single time when that happens. Okay, and once again, this is the only case. Example 1 is the only case where we didn't have that. We just had an x up here. Okay, but here we've got n plus 5, so that means we have to distribute the 2 to the n and the 5. Okay, but what does that mean for the other side? Well, what are we doing on the other side? Well, we're just multiplying 4 and 10, which I'm going to take a little shortcut here and go ahead and write that that's 40. I know 10 times 4 is 40. So now, once again, we kind of have the equation set up for us, except for we got to do the next thing is distribute. So we got to take the 2, distribute to the n and to the 5. 2 times n, 2n, plus 2 times 5 is 10. That's still equal to 40. And now all I've got after I distribute is a 2-step equation where I solve it just like, and I'm not going to spend too much time on the steps here for solving a 2-step equation, because once again, it solves just like every other 2-step equation we've ever done. So in that case, we get n is equal to 15. Okay. And just like any equation, you can plug this back in. So 2 divided by 10, that should be the same as 4 divided by 15 plus 5. So that'd be 20. And if you plug those into a calculator, 2 divided by 10 is 0.2. 4 divided by 20 is also 0.2. Okay. So you have equal sides here. And once again, that tells us n is equal to 15. Going on to example number 3. Ratchet up the difficulty just a little bit, because as you see, there's actually 2 y's in this one. Okay, so what we're going to have to do, once again, first step is cross multiply. Once again, looks a little wonky here, so I'm trying to fit everything in there. But what does that tell us? Well, you can do it either way. So you can do the 2 times y first, or you can do like I'm going to do here. I'm going to do the 5 times the whole thing, y minus 3 first, and that's going to be equal to 2 times y, or 2y. You can kind of say where maybe this is going because we have a variable on both sides of the equation. So after we distribute, so once again, we're distributing 5. 5 times y is 5y, minus 5 times 3 is 15. That's still equal to 2y. Now we just have an equation with variables on both sides, and you can do this either way you like. So you can subtract the 5y from both sides, or you can subtract the 2y from both sides. I'm going to do, and it may seem a little weird here for just a second, but I'm going to subtract the 2y from both sides, because when I do 5y minus 2y, I get 3y. We still have the minus 15, and that's equal to, and this is a place where you can kind of get a little messed up if you're not paying attention, but 2y minus 2y, normally we would say, okay, those cancel out. But what does it mean when we cancel out something when we're adding or subtracting? Well, that means this is going to become, so what's left over here? Well, there's nothing. So that means we're actually going to be left with 0. Okay, 2y minus 2y is 0. A number minus itself is technically 0. And that's technically what we're doing when we say, hey, when I subtract the 2y here, they cancel out. Well, it's leaving me with 0. Normally, I have something over here saying like plus 5 or minus 30 or something, okay? But once again, in this case, we get 0. But even though there's a 0 here, this still is just a two-step equation. So we would solve it the same way. Let's add 15. 3y is equal to 15. So last step, divide by 3, divide by 3. Y is equal to 5. Okay. So once again, don't let this 0 trip you up, because if you don't have anything else over here after you subtract the 2y, technically what's over here, it's not like you can just say that's nothing and get rid of the equal sign. There is a number over here, and that number is 0. So if you don't have anything left on the side over here, you can put a 0 in there, okay? Now that will happen from time to time, especially if you have something like this where you've got y minus 3 over here, but then you just have a y right here. Well, that's telling you this side of the, one side of the equation is just going to be 2y, not 2y plus something or 2y minus something, okay? And like I said, that does happen from time to time, so just be aware that you can solve it just like any other equation with variables on both sides. Once again, subtract one of the variable terms, you end up with a two-step equation, solve the two-step equation. And then lastly here, number 4, as far as guided examples go, we're going to cross multiply there, and we're going to cross multiply there. Once again, looks kind of wonky because trying to fit everything in the ovals here, but and like I said, it's up to you which way you want to do it. If you're clever enough, you can see which way is probably going to be the easiest, and it's going to be, once again, I'm going to multiply 5 times the 2k minus 3 first. So we're going to take 5 times the 2k minus 3, and that's going to be equal to, well, here we've got the 3 times k plus 9. And once again, we're at a place where you can kind of see where this is going. We have variables on both sides, but before we can do anything about that, we need to distribute. So distribute the 5 to the 2k and the 3, distribute the 3 to the k and the 9. So 5 times 2k gives me 10k, minus 5 times 3 is 15. That's equal to 3 times k is 3k, plus 3 times 9, 27. And then, once again, we're at a spot where this works just like any other equation with variables on both sides, okay? So, like I said, we're relying heavily on being able to solve these and knowing how to solve the equations we've done before, because, like I said, at this point, the only thing that we change is we have to do this cross multiplication, and literally everything else works the same. So minus 3k, 10k minus 3k gives me 7k, minus 15 is equal to, well, those 3k's go away. Once again, technically given a 0, then 0 plus 27 is 27. And then, once again, same steps as always. Two-step equation, plus 15, 7k is equal to 42. Divide by 7, k is equal to 6. Okay. Once again, it seems like there's a lot going on, but literally the only thing we're adding to this, the only thing we're adding by solving proportions then over what we've done before is this idea of cross multiplication. So what's coming next is the section called You Try. Okay, so if you'd like to, I'm going to go straight into solving these. So what I suggest doing is pause the video here. Okay, attempt these next 16 questions. So try all these equations, see if you can't try to solve them. And then if you get stuck or if you get done and you want to check your work, unpause the video or come back to the video and look at how I solve these equations or these proportions. Because once again, I wanted to try to get some practice in here. And like I said, you can come back and double check yourself and make sure that you're doing these correctly, because after we do these 16 questions, the homework works the same way. So you'll do the homework, which is, I think it's 12 questions, very similar to what you see here. So like I said, pause the video now, give these a shot, and then come back to the video and check your work. So if you've already worked these, once again, double check yourself. But if you're stuck on something, you're still not sure, just follow along with how I do these. And every single example pretty much works the same. Okay. So first step here, we have x plus 10 over 8. So we have a ratio equals x over 3 equals another ratio. So that means we can cross multiply. Once again, that's the trick here. So either way you want to do this, I'm actually going to do it a little bit differently here. I'm going to do the 8 times x first, so 8x, and that's going to be equal to the 3 times, once again, the whole thing, x plus 10 in parentheses. Once again, not much we can do here with the 8x, so we'll just keep it 8x, but we can distribute the 3 over here. So 3 times x gives me 3x plus 3 times 10 is 30. Once again, you can either do one of two things. You can either subtract the 8x from both sides. You can subtract the 3x from both sides. The smart thing to do here would probably be to subtract the 3x from both sides. So when we do 8x minus 3x, that gives me 5x. The 3x's here cancel out, leaving me with the 30. So what do we have? Well, we have a one-step equation where if we divide by 5, we get x is equal to positive 6. So x is equal to 6. Okay. And once again, as always, you can double check yourself by plugging back in. 6 plus 10 is 16. Divided by 8 is 2. 6 divided by 3 is also 2. So 2 is equal to 2. That means x is 6. Number 2, a little bit different, but same steps. We're going to cross multiply. And once again, whichever way you feel more comfortable doing, you can do the left cross or the top to bottom cross first, or you can do the bottom to top cross first, whichever cross multiplication you want to do first. Okay. Like I said, you can probably get a hint as to which way you need to go to make it the easiest. In this case, I'm going to do the 6 times the p plus 2 first, and then that's going to be equal to my 3 times p plus 7 in parentheses. Once again, don't forget the parentheses here. It just throws everything off because, once again, if you've got something like this, you're going to have to end up distributing, okay? The only one, like I said before, the only one that didn't require that was number 1 in the guided practice, and that was just a special simple case just to show you how to cross multiply pretty much, okay? But here we've got 6 times p is 6p plus 6 times 2 is 12. That's equal to 3 times p is 3p plus 3 times 7 is 21. Once again, we get to this point, it's the same as we were right here. It's the same as we were in the other examples where we have an equation with variables on both sides. So I'm going to subtract 3p, subtract 3p. 6p minus 3p is 3p. We still have the plus 12 is equal to the 3p's cancel out, giving us 21. Then we subtract 12, 3p is equal to 9. Once again, the whole point, we want to get rid of those 12s. 21 minus 12 is 9, and then divide by 3. So we get p in this case is equal to 3. Okay. I'm going to move pretty quickly with these because, once again, I want you to just check yourself. You should have already had these done, but once again, if you're stuck, try to pay attention to how I do the steps in each one of these, and it works the same every single time. So number 3, we have another proportion here. Ratio is equal to a ratio, so we're going to cross multiply this way. And once again, you might be able to see which way I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with the 6 times w minus 2 first. And I'm going to say that's equal to 3 times w, which is 3w. Okay. Now, once again, it could have had it flipped around. So you could have 3w is equal to 6 times, in parentheses, w minus 2. You don't have to do it in any particular order here. Okay. You can cross multiply here first, then here, and then, or vice versa. But you should have these two sides be equal. And then, once again, this side we're going to have to, so the left-hand side on mine, we're going to have to distribute. So 6 times w is 6w. Minus 6 times 2 is 12. That's equal to 3w. And then this is kind of the same as what we had with example 3, where we had this thing on the left-hand side and then just a 2y. Well, it's the same thing here. We have this thing on the left-hand side and we just have 3w. But I'm going to do it the same way. I'm going to subtract the 3w. Subtract the 3w. 6w minus 3w is 3w minus 12 is equal to, and like I said, this is the part where people do get confused, but if we have 3w minus 3w, a number minus itself, the whole point we say those cancel out is that gives us 0. And then two-step equation time, add 12, 3w is equal to 12. So that means w is equal to 4. Once again, the whole point with all these steps is we're canceling things out as we go. So the steps, if you remember back, we talked about doing the opposite of the order of operations. Well, it still holds here. Everything we talked about with solving equations still holds. The only thing we're talking about that's new is this cross multiplication stuff we're doing. So same thing here, just we're moving right along. We'll do that cross multiplication, and then we'll do that cross multiplication. So I'm going to do 9 times n minus 4 first, and that's going to be equal to 6 times n minus 7. Same kind of thing here. Don't forget the parentheses because we'll need to distribute on both sides this time. So 9 times n is 9n, minus 9 times 4 is 36. 6 times n is 6n, minus 6 times 7 is 42. And like I've said before, same exact thing as we've had before. So we're going to solve this as a equation with variables on both sides. So subtract 6n, 9n minus 6n gives us 3n. We still have the minus 36. The 6n's cancel out, and we're left with negative. So since it's minus 42, we're going to be left with negative 42. Because once again, technically what we have here is 0 minus 42, which is negative 42. And then, just as always, two-step equation. Once again, we want to get rid of those 36's. So 3n is equal to negative 42 plus 36. Can be a little bit tricky here because of the negatives, but what we end up getting here is negative 6. Okay, once again, if you have trouble dealing with adding and subtracting negatives and things like that, have no problem double checking yourself on a calculator, especially with bigger numbers like this. But then the last step is just divide by 3, so we get n is equal to, in this case, negative 2. Okay. So once again, same steps as every equation we solved up to this point, except, like I said, we're just adding the cross multiplication. So moving right along, let's keep this train going. Cross multiply here and here. And notice how quick that we're getting with these, because once again, they work the same way every time. I'm going to do 3 times a plus 1 first. Then that's going to be equal to 2 times a minus 3 next. Same kind of thing here. We're going to distribute on both sides this time. 3 times a gives me the 3a, plus 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times a gives me 2a, minus 2 times 3 is 6. And then same exact thing. You can either subtract 3a or 2a. I'm going to subtract 2a just because As you notice, I usually always subtract from the right-hand side to get my variable on the left-hand side. But those go away. 3a minus 2a is 1a, so I'm just going to put a plus 3 is equal to, those go away. We're left with minus 6, negative 6. And then last step here is we just have a one-step equation this time where we're just subtracting 3. So the 3's go away, leaving me with a is equal to negative 6 minus 3. We get negative 9. Okay, I do apologize if my 9s look like A's or vice versa, so let me shorten that tail up just to make it clear that these are A's and not 9s. Okay, but we have A is equal to negative 9. Okay, number 6, same exact thing, so we're going to cross multiply here. Except this one's actually, I think, a little easier, even though the numbers get a little bit bigger, but I'm going to do the 5 times the whole thing f plus 2. Then that's going to be equal to 25 times 3. Shortcut this a little bit. 3 times 25 is 75. Okay, then once again, we need to distribute. So 5 times f is 5f, plus 5 times 2 is 10. That's still equal to 75. And now we just have a two-step equation. We don't have any variables on the right-hand side, so all we got to do is solve a two-step equation. 10's go away, so we have 5f is equal to 65. Bigger numbers here, something that maybe you wouldn't recognize, it wouldn't be recognizable from knowing your times tables, but if we divide by 5, we get f is equal to, in this case, 13. So 65 divided by 5 is 13. And like I said, it seems kind of repetitive here, which it kind of is, because every single question works the same. Okay, so like I said, just use this if you want to skip around after you've already done them. Check and make sure you got all the answers right and you feel confident in this. That's perfectly fine. But once again, if you're still struggling with stuff, just watch how I do every step. And like I said, every single one of these works the same way. Okay, so I'm going to do the 8 times m minus 8 first. That's going to be equal to 6 times m minus 9 in parentheses. So once again, big step here, don't forget the parentheses. Okay, once again, it's 8 times the whole thing, m minus 8. It's 6 times the whole thing, m minus 9. But those will be equal, so then we distribute. So we get 8 times m is 8m, minus 8 times 8 is 64. So we're dealing with some pretty big numbers here. 6 times m is 6m, minus 6 times 9. It's one that always tripped me up in grade school, but that is 54. And then, like I said, same exact thing here. Once we get through with the distributing, we just have an equation with variables on both sides. I'm going to subtract 6m. So 8m minus 6m is 2m. We still have the minus 64 is equal to 6m's go away, so we are left with minus 54, so negative 54. And then once again, two-step equation where I'm going to add 64, add 64. 64's go away, left me with 2m is equal to, it's again, bigger numbers here, negatives and stuff, so I have no problem with you double checking yourself on a calculator, but you can kind of see it is negative 54 plus 64. It's the same thing as 64 minus 54, which would just be 10. And then, just like before, divide by 2, m is equal to 5. Okay. Like I said, as you practice with these, there are so many just so you can get repetitious practice here. Because once again, you can see how fast we're getting with these. Because if you see, it's the same steps every single time. Cross multiply. I'm going to do the 4 times r plus 4 first. That's going to be equal to 2 times r, which is 2r. So you can kind of maybe see where this is going. Same as what we had with the, I think it was second example, or I think it was second example. Let's flip back and look. So same kind of thing here as we had in number 3, as we had in, technically, like we had in number 1. technically like we had in example 3. We got in example 3. So we've seen this over and over and over again, just the numbers change a bit. So we're going to distribute the 4. 4r plus 4 times 4 is 16. And then I'm going to do the step where I'm going to subtract 2r. 4r minus 2r is 2r plus 16 is equal to, those go away, technically giving us 0 because there's nothing else over here, okay? And then we just do our two-step equation dance here. 0 minus 16 is negative 16. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. R is equal to, so all those cancel out, giving us negative 8. Okay. So once again, very repetitious, but that's kind of a good thing in math because every single one of these equations we solve the exact same way. So cross multiply here, cross multiply here. 5 times v minus 2 is equal to 2 times v minus 8. And then same steps. Let's distribute. Okay, so 5 times v gives me 5v. Minus 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times v is 2v. Minus 2 times 8 is 16. And I know I sound like a broken record, but equation with variables on both sides. Same thing. I'm going to minus the 2v, minus the 2v. 5v minus 2v is 3v. Minus 10 is equal to, well, those go away, giving us negative 16. Plus 10, plus 10. Those go away, leaving with 3v is equal to negative 16 plus 10. Once again, not too big of numbers here, but we got a negative plus a positive. So negative 16 plus positive 10 is going to leave me with negative 6. Then divide by 3, divide by 3. V is equal to negative 2. Same thing with number 10. Like I said, it's probably getting old for you. But so like I said, if you got this down and you feel like you've got it, you can skip the rest of the video. But what I suggest doing is maybe skip through the video to make sure and look at the answers and just to make sure you got all the answers correct. But like I said, if you're still having trouble, same kind of thing here. We're just going to go through and work all these out. So I'm going to do 8 times k minus 1 is equal to 6 times k minus 6. Same thing here. We're going to have to distribute. So 8 times k is 8k, minus 8 times 1 is 8. 6 times k is 6k, minus 6 times 6 is 36. Once again, some bigger numbers here. Got some stuff going on, but same steps. So if you just follow along with the steps I did over here. Subtracted 2v here because 2v was over here. I'm going to subtract 6k. But if I do something on one side, I've got to do it to the other. So 8k minus 6k gives me 2k. Minus 8 is equal to, those go away, minus 36 becomes negative 36. And then once again, two-step equation here, add 8, 2k is equal to negative 36 plus 8. Once again, bigger negative number, or also bigger number, but it's negative, okay? So negative 36 plus 8 gives me actually negative 28. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So k is equal to negative over positive negative. 28 divided by 2, 14. So negative 14. We're in the home stretch here, so we got just 6 more to do. And then, like I said, I'll turn you loose on the homework. So number 11, once again, going through here, cross multiply, same steps as always. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to do the 4 times y minus 4 times y minus 7 first, and then the 3 times y minus 9. So once again, distribute 4y minus 28 is equal to 3y minus 27. Once again, where I'm getting these numbers is I'm distributing everything out, okay? Once again, same process. I'm going to subtract 3y. 4y minus 3y is 1y, so just y minus 28 is equal to, those are going to go away, giving me negative 27. And seeing some people, so if you need to, technically there is a 1 here, okay? But at this point, hopefully everybody would recognize if we have 1y, we can just kind of erase that 1 and just have y. But if you wanted to carry it on through, you could see if we did carry it on through, it would just be a two-step equation, but not much of a two-step equation because we would do this. We would have 1y is equal to negative 27 plus 28. That's a 1. And then we divide by 1. Well, what's 1 divided by 1? Well, that's just 1. So like I said, if you left the 1 in front of it, but we could actually skip that step because if we could see, all right, 1 in front of a y, we can just get rid of it. Okay, but I'll leave it in here just for this example so you can see, but because it does end up working out the same, but that's one way you can kind of skip a step and save yourself a little time. Okay, so same thing here, cross multiply. I'm going to do the 9 times h plus 9 first, and that's going to be equal to 4 times h minus 6. Not a g, a little of a glitch there. So it's a 6. So now we do the same thing. We distribute 9 times h, 9h, plus 9 times 9, 81. 4 times h, 4h, minus 4 times 6, 24. About messed up and said 36, so you didn't hear me say that. Then once again, same steps. Minus 4h, minus 4h. 9h minus 4h gives me 5h plus 81 equals, those are going to go away, so that's negative 24. Then we're going to subtract 81, subtract 81. Bigger numbers here, so just be careful. 5h is equal to negative 24 minus 81. So once again, dealing with some bigger numbers here, and we got negatives floating around, so I have no problem with you double checking yourself on a calculator. Negative 24 minus 81, that's going to be negative 105. So once again, dealing with some bigger numbers, but same steps. And that's why we have the calculator to help us. H is equal to negative 105 divided by 5, that's going to be negative 21. All right, then last 4 here. So same kind of thing. So we're going to cross multiply. Okay, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to do the 4 times r first, and then that's going to be equal to 2 times. And some of you might have gotten to the point where you can kind of skip this part where, because you know we're going to have to distribute, you can just go ahead and write this as 2r plus 20. So you can see I'm going to have to distribute up here, but just to play it safe, just to have it the same way we've done it every single time, I'm still going to write the parentheses here. So times r plus 10. So distribute. So 4r is equal to 2r plus 20. I'm going to subtract the 2r, subtract the 2r. 4 minus 2r is 2r is equal to 20. So this one's actually, to me, a pretty easy one. Divide by 2, r is equal to 10. Okay, and now we get into some tougher ones because we end up with things like 2x instead of x down here, okay? But it's the same exact process. Okay, so I'm going to do the 7 times x minus 6 first, and then the 3 times 2x minus 8 next. Same steps though. We're distributing. 7 times x, 7x, minus 7 times 6, 42. 3 times 2x is 6x, minus 3 times 8 is 24. And then once again, we get to this point, dealing with maybe some bigger numbers than we're used to, but same steps. Okay, so 7x minus 6x gives me 1x. I'm just going to write that as x this time, because now you can see that makes it a one less step I have to do, because if I just have an x here, minus 42, it's going to be equal to negative 24. The only step, the last step that I have to do is just add 42. So we get x, because those will go away, is equal to Once again, some bigger numbers here, but we end up with 18. Negative 24 plus 42 is 18. And then last two, and we'll wrap this up. But once again, don't get too flustered if you're having trouble at this point, because these are the harder ones in terms of numbers that you have to deal with here, but still the same process every time. So I'm actually going to do, like I said, some of you might have caught on to what happens when I do this, but I'm going to do the 3 times 3u plus 7 first, and then the 2 times 4u plus 9. So like I said, same steps. It's just I maybe change it up and do one over the other first in terms of that. Like I said, some of you might be clever enough to catch on what I'm doing, but we have 3 times 3u gives me 9u, plus 3 times 7 is 21. 2 times 4u, so once again we're distributing, is 8u, plus 2 times 9 is 18. So once again, minus 8u, minus 8u. Seems very common here recently is 9u minus 8u is 1u, plus 21 is equal to 18. And then we just subtract 21, u is equal to negative 3. And then the last one, okay? But once again, same steps. I'm going to go here, and then we're going to go here. I'm going to do the 10 times 2x minus 1 first, and then the 5 times 3x plus 1 second. Same steps. We distribute. Boom, boom. 10 times 2x gives me 20x, minus 10 times 1 is 10. It's equal to 5 times 3x is 15x, plus 5 times 1 is 5. So I'm going to subtract the 15x. Okay, 20x minus 15x is 5x, minus 10 is equal to, those are going to go away, leaving me with 5, plus 10, plus 10, 5x is equal to 15. So those will go away, and divide by 5, x is equal to positive 3. So my hand is cramping now because that was a lot of equations, so 16 total equations there that I asked you to do on your own. But once again, as you went, hopefully you got a little quicker with it, and now hopefully you see if you got these right or not. Hopefully, if you didn't get them right, you saw maybe what you did wrong, because I'll be honest, if you did something wrong in one of them, then you probably did something wrong in all of them, because once again, every single one of these works the same. Okay, so like I said, take your time, look and see how these are worked out. Try to follow along with my steps. Where this is in a video, go back and replay an example if you don't understand it the first time. Okay, just make sure that you can get the same answers that I do. And like I said, this just works just like any other equation we saw before. We're just adding the cross multiplication. Okay. But with that being said, go and attempt the homework. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. So email me, comment to me on Google Classroom, do something. But let me know if you're having problems. And once again, thanks for watching.